And as always, thank you for having me on the show. What a week of football it's been, not just in the AFL, but in the SANFL as well. We're going to get to the SANFL a little bit later on. We have some good news for people like me who go for West Adelaide winning the 16th Premiership. We will get to that as well. But we're going to start off with the AFL Semi-Finals, and we're going to start off at home with the Adelaide Crows versus Hawthorn. Now, Adelaide they did this to themselves, I reckon. I think that's the fair call here. I feel like the Crows, they did this to themselves. The airport did this to themselves. The city did this to itself. They went out there. They looked flat in the first 5-10 minutes of that game. That's all that Hawthorn needed to really stamp their footing. The final score in the first semi-final, Adelaide 10-7, 67. Hawthorn 14-17, 101. So Hawthorn, we can say bad kicking's bad football, but when you are in that position where you are just running up scoring chances, that is what you need to be, especially when your first attempts are on target. And that first 2 minutes, 10 seconds, and that's all I needed to see of the game was that first 2 minutes, 10 seconds, 3-1. That is where you need to be in finals. They absolutely nailed the brief of what they needed to do coming into Adelaide, getting the job done against a Crows team who really, really looked like they were lost, they were lifeless, and they probably didn't really belong the semi-final table. You know, they lost to Collingwood last week. I thought, okay, lose to Collingwood, that's fair. I can take that. But then you come out this week, the fans they seem to be really divided. There is a absolute division. That's what I saw all week on the news, on social media. There was this idea that, you know, some sections of the crowd within the Crows fans went out to the game where they played again against Collingwood last week, because their first week of finals, that Isaac Quaynor and Dan Houston deserve to be booed. No, nobody deserves to be booed. People on the internet were saying these people, you know, they don't represent the club. They don't represent what Adelaide Football Club stands for. I agree with that. Adelaide Football Club's always been a good club. I know what they're about in the community, being in South Australia. Ben, I'm sure you do too. We've probably had interactions with the club before on a personal level, growing up, being junior members, but it shows a real divide in the club. Is that some people are happy to go out there and just say whatever they feel like, boo whatever they feel like because their guy's not playing. Yeah, because Isaiah Rankin's not playing. We're going to get to him in a sec. But it's not a good position for the Crows to be in, I'll tell you that much. That's what I'm really concerned about. Because now the players and the fans, there's starting to be a division amongst the fans. And this is where clubs crumble, when the fans divide. We had 53,000 there last 2 weeks, and the fans are starting to divide. On the internet, and the media, that's what makes a club crumble. We can see this with, you know, Port Adelaide already. I don't bring them up, but it's a good case. It's a good case study of, you know, the Hinkley in, Hinkley outs. You know, and I'm not going to say it's going to get to that, but it's going to be, I think, a situation where, you know, the players realize it too. The players aren't dumb. The players are pretty keen onto this stuff. They realize it too that the fans. Some of them did just purposely go there to boo against Collingwood, and some genuinely went there to watch the Crows try their best. And then during the week, we had the whole situation going, the Hawthorn game, and karma come back, bit the Crows right in the arse, because, you know, talking all week, there's no way Hawthorn can beat us. More division, the airport signs, oh my God, the whole thing was an absolute horror show. I don't know where to start. I think we're going to start with the airport signs, actually. Now, full credit to Adelaide Airport for doing this. Putting up signs being like, you're in Crows country. You are going to get knocked off here, boy. But no. You tried it last week against Collingwood. It didn't work. Then you tried it again this week against Hawthorn, and you paid the price. It didn't work. You lose, you shut your mouth, you put your head down, you go to work. Now we move on to the coaches. Matthew Nix, you're in the firing line right now, mate. You want to talk Hawthorn, okay, Hawthorn's a good opponent, but we're better. There's no way we can see them beating us because we believe we're the better team. That's a great way to pump up your team, and I have no problem with that. But it's finals football. You need to realise that anything can happen. Even the most inconceivable out there, Hawthorn gets a 3-goal head start in the first 5 minutes, thing can happen. It's the nature of finals that the Crows have had to come to deal with recently, that harsh reality of finals being this kind of way and not being like any home and away game. So Crows, I really think that you did this to yourself, Rankin or not. I feel like if we're going to pass blame on anyone, unfortunately, I think I'm just going to have to put it on him. He opened his mouth. He said one dumb thing. I mean, he made a mistake on the field. We've all done it. I've made mistakes on the field. Ben, I'm sure you have as well, where we say something or do something that's not in line with our club values or our personal values, but we see that it costs our team. And you set yourself up 18-5 come the end of the regular season, and then you say one stupid thing in round 23 against Collingwood in the minor premiership clinching game, or pretty much the minor premiership clinching game, and you shove your team off a cliff, really, is what you do. So I think for the Crows, it's going to be a very, very long next 12 months because, as I say about all the teams, is you get to this stage and then you lose, you're just as better off as, or just as worse off as the teams who don't make finals. All that 6 months of hard work, and you're going back to 0-0 with nothing to show for it. It's about understanding that the moment passes you. You have to be there for the moments. These are the moments that define people as athletes in life. Now, do I think the Crows are going to go full 2017, 2018? No, I don't. But this is going to hurt the players over the off-season. It's going to hurt the players in the preseason. It's going to hurt the players more next year if they come to round one and they don't have a good effort in round one, they don't have a good effort in round two or round three, and suddenly, okay, there might not be 0-3, there might be 1-2, 2-1, but those wins have been very close and maybe a big loss in there to a Collingwood or Geelong or Brisbane in that first 3 games as well. So the Crows not in the best place right now. We're going to jump over to the Hawks now. They played a fantastic game. They played a brilliant game. They knew what they were doing. Their game plan was solid, and as I said in the intro, the way that they just claim those first couple of centre clearances, run it out, and really put message to the Crows saying you're not going to run this show, we are. That's what makes this Hawthorn team so special and so different. Is again, I say look at their scoreboard 14-17, but that 14-17 came later on in the game. That first quarter, 4-4 is, a pretty solid first start, but then it happened really in that third quarter where they still kicked 5 goals. So I'm not even going to complain about that this week. They were the better team on the day. I accept that. I think a lot of Crows fans have to accept that. Hawthorn outplayed you and they won. Hawthorn won the game not because Adelaide didn't show up, but because they were more willing to do the little things. I talked about it last week, doing the little things in finals football, where you go and you do that extra half a yard of pace, that extra 10% of commitment in a contest. Those are the things that define an elite finals team from a regular finals team. And this is what Hawthorn Mitchell played under Clarkson at Hawthorn. He knows all about this stuff. And that's what he's teaching this next generation of Hawthorn players. So they're positioned really well. They're going to go on and play the Cats. We'll talk about that game later on. I'm going to get on to my player of the game now because I think this guy, he really deserves it. He's been such a standout player all year for just not Hawthorn, but across the AFL. One of the real standouts this season, and it is going to be Jack Gunston from Hawthorn. 100 fantasy, 5 goals, 16 touches, 13 kicks, 3 handballs, 7 marks in what was just another winding back of the clock effort from Jack Gunston. He's done it all year. He's up to 70 goals this year. For a man who was supposed to be going back to Hawthorn to live out his final days as an AFL footballer and just help the young guys, eventually before getting dropped out, as they come back up the ladder. Well, he's been a key piece in them coming back up the ladder. Especially, he did so much work last year, but especially this year, 70 goals from him at 33 years old is absolutely impressive considering the narrative going on around him in the early season. So well done to Hawthorn. You'll move on. You play Geelong. Adelaide, unfortunately, time to go home, sit back and think about what happens over the off-season because it is going to be a tough 12 months for the Crows. I will tell you that right now. Now move on to the second semi-final in the 2025 AFL Final Series. This one was the Q-Clash semi between the Brisbane Lions and the Gold Coast Suns, and this one, unfortunately, was very much all Brisbane from really really from the second quarter. The first quarter, very even. It looked like Gold Coast were pulling away in that first quarter. First quarter was 3-4 to the Gold Coast, 3-5 to the Lions. Brisbane just edging away in that back end of the first quarter before they really just put the foot down, run away with it. Gold Coast 2 goals in the second quarter to Brisbane 6. Only 4 points in the third quarter for Gold Coast to Brisbane's 3 goals, and then 1 goal to 2 in the final quarter as Brisbane run out this semi-final 14-16, 100, Gold Coast 6-11, 47. Unfortunate stuff for Gold Coast. I really thought they could have done a lot more with this, considering they had a Q-Clash semi not at home, but in Queensland, where you have the 2 Queensland teams. The weather kind of neutralises off in terms of getting any advantage from it playing against an interstate side. But Brisbane did play their better football against Gold Coast. As I said, I've been talking about this on the show. The last couple of weeks have been leading into finals, as we've got into finals, especially last week as well. I think that matchups were going to be key across finals, and I think that Geelong match up well against Brisbane, and I think that Brisbane match up well against Gold Coast. And this is the thing, is when you match up well against a team, you play, your football probably looks better than it is. Now, Brisbane, for all rights, had an absolutely brilliant game, but in fair weather at the Gabba, Brisbane do match up well against Gold Coast. I know I said Gold Coast probably should have won this one. I still believe at least they should have put in a lot better of a performance on the scoreboard. Their effort, I can't fault their effort all night. It was up, but just not getting the bounce of the football a lot going their way. So unfortunately there for the Suns, but they have had a brilliant first finals campaign. They go all the way across the country, knock off Fremantle in a what would be an absolute classic final, going forward, part of the Gold Coast history forever. That first win, David Swallow kicking the golden point at the end there for the Gold Coast, and then just the jubilation the players showed after the game in their rooms. Q-Clash, those Q-Clash semi, they were so excited for this. And then the moment just got to them. Just the experience of Brisbane just got to them. And this is okay, because this is a learning experience for Gold Coast, like Adelaide. This is a learning experience. 2 sides, pretty much the majority of the list, if not the whole list, have never seen football or never played in AFL level football come September. So, there's not a lot to be negative about. Probably the way it ended is probably the real only negative. But Brisbane, though, they get the win. No Neil available for them in this game, but they're still able to get the win because they dig down deep. When Gold Coast started to get a run, they capped it, and they totally flipped the game on its head from that very, very early point of the first quarter, and then just ran out the game from there pretty much in a real Brisbane fashion. Just clean football. Players willing to do the extra yards, willing to put in that extra effort, to get the side over the line. And I can't fault them. They're going to go and play Collingwood next week in the other prelim. That's what we're going to talk about in a minute. Before we do that, we have to give out our player of the game. Player of the game for Brisbane and the Gold Coast Suns. I'm going to have to give it to Will Ashcroft from Brisbane. 111 fantasy, 2 goals, 28 touches, 15 kicks, 13 handballs, 3 marks, and 4 tackles for Will Ashcroft. Now, with the matchup sorted, it's time to get into the preliminary finals for AFL season 2025, and we start on the Friday night with Geelong versus Hawthorn, and this is a game that I am very, very interested in as a neutral. Geelong are going to probably handle business in this one quite Geelong fashion. I'm not going to say it's going to be comfortable. It's not easy. Prelims are never easy for anyone. It's about the mental game, and Hawthorn definitely have that. But when we look at Geelong's track record of success in the AFL over this long term, basically since the Bomber Thompson days, there's consistency, high end pressure situations. Geelong are by definition the high leverage team in the AFL. They are the team who are the most clutch in the AFL. You need a team like Geelong in the preliminary final stages. That said, we look at Hawthorn. They are young, they are hungry, they are ready. Got past their last checkpoint from last year. They get this opportunity in a prelim. If they make a grand final, this would be a big, big statement to the league that these young Hawks are a genuine threat for a long time now. I thought ruling them out come start of the year, but here we are, Friday Night Lights, Cats, Hawks, prelim time. you could not write a better story than this. For years and years and years, going back through the 2000s and the 2010s, these two always used to be clashing against each other. This was the finals matchup growing up. This is now the finals matchup where, funnily enough, some of those cats are still around. They're older, but they're still there. The Hawks are the young team. They come into this with that new refreshed list. And this one is genuinely very, very hard to call. I think I'm just going to have to take the experience here, go with the Cats, and I'm going to take the Cats. I'm going to say they win by 26 points, but in that 26 points, it will be a late run out. It will be tight all game, and the Cats will just have one late run out, and that is how we get there in that one. In the other prelim on the Saturday night, we have Collingwood versus Brisbane. This is a matchup that obviously was, on the cards. It's been on the cards for some time too. Of the real heavyweights of season 2025 going at it. Obviously, those two teams played in the grand final of 2023. Collingwood won that one. Brisbane beat Sydney last year to get the grand final for 24. And now here we are in 25, where only one of them can play in the grand final. And I think this one in Melbourne, it just gives Collingwood so much advantage. Neil still out for Brisbane, who's hoping to play in the grand final if they can make it. But in Melbourne, the black and white army is going to be out. They're going to be there. Brisbane, could find a way. They need to get Charlie Cameron going. They need to get the forward line going early. They need to be able to assert dominance in that first quarter to really put the other team under pressure. They didn't do it against Geelong. They didn't do it against Gold Coast, but they need to do it here. That forward line for Brisbane needs to fire early because Collingwood's will be. They have so many options in that forward line. Mason Cox, Jamie Elliott, Bobby Hill possibly could come back in. They've got players who are ready for the big dance as well. Nick Dacos, Pendles is still there. Steele Sidebottom's still there. Defensively, they're very well structured with Darcy Moore, Dan Houston, Isaac Quaynor. It's going to be a very, very tough ask for Brisbane in Melbourne in a preliminary final to beat Collingwood on Saturday night. So, all that put out there on the table, I'm going to be looking forward to this one, but I'm taking the Pies. I'm taking the Pies by a real grinded out, hard fought 15-point victory where they just are able to build a 3 goal lead and just hold it all night. Just every time Brisbane gets a couple back, put some more back on the board kind of footy. Very much like we've seen Collingwood do to teams all season long. So Collingwood versus Geelong is my grand final prediction for season 2025. With the AFL out the way, let's get into some of the SANFL from the weekend because we have some great news and some not so great news. Ben, I'm very sorry. How are you coping? But we'll get into that now as well. Of the SANFL for this week was the Under-16s grand final between Central Districts and the West Adelaide Footy Club. And I can tell you right now, I am very, very happy to announce that the 16s premiers for 2025, West Adelaide, the Bloods get the chip in the 16s. And this has been a year's worth of effort from West Adelaide. This has been a genuine hard-fought effort, for this team to come up and get this one. Weren't really a favourite throughout the year. Really, Central sort of dominated the 16s. But as I say, finals football can do funny things to you. Real gritty, hard-fought game, low-scoring final scores. 9-8 to 9-19, West Adelaide winning this one. Central's 9-8-62, West Adelaide 9-19-73. So a little bit of the old West Adelaide's in the mix. But we get the premiership there for the club. This is, unfortunately, we had so many opportunities to really put them away in the back end. With our final quarter, we kicked 1 goal 7. With our second half, we kicked 4 goals 10. So many opportunities, especially in that last quarter, to put Centrals away. Didn't do it the easy way. Definitely did it the hard way. But great work to the West Adelaide 16s, getting the job done, getting the team across the line in the end. So the goal scorers for West, Sam De Palma, 2 goals, Lawrence Adriani, 1 goal, Andrew Klimakis, 1 goal, Hamish Hudson, 1 goal, Calvin Jones, 1 goal. Central's goal scorers were Lachlan McPhedran, 2 goals, Tony Marone, 1 goal, Billy Nichols, 1 goal, Brady Wimpress, 1 goal, and Levi Dudley, 1 goal. We'll get off that very quickly, but huge congratulations to the West 16s. You boys deserve the premiership. You've worked hard for it all year. This is what builds a football club, and this is, one of the things I talk about with West Adelaide. We're one of those clubs that we don't have a lot of sustained success at league level and at reserves level, but in our Colts and our junior Colts, that is where we find our success, because we are one of those clubs who sees a lot of our young players go off to the AFL, very in drafts, in national drafts, in preseason drafts, in mid-season drafts. So to have this success, even when you go off to the AFL, boys, you've done this together. So congratulations on that, and well done on winning the 16s premiership. West Adelaide had another grand final opportunity in the 18s. Unfortunately, that one didn't go our way. We were well and truly beaten by Sturt from the opening bounce. Final scores here, 2-12-24, 12-9, 81 Sturt. Sturt 18s, congratulations on winning that premiership. You are a really strong side this year. You've got it across all the grades and the women as well. So you are what we want to be at SANFL level from a West Adelaide perspective. Just strength across the board, and I can't fault you, because you are just such a good team this year, and you're what all the clubs strive to be. Unfortunately, you had to play us. We had to play you in the 18th grand final, so we couldn't get that one across the line. But, it's not something to dwell on. I don't think that losing a grand final, it's upsetting. You do all the work to get there, and you get nothing, but you got there. How many clubs every year say they play a grand final too? Unfortunately, someone has to lose. It was our 18s this year, but we still very, very good effort all year. Just cannot be any more proud of this club, what we've done with our juniors over the last couple of years. This is something that, I say this is what West Adelaide's about. I talk about it with the 16th. This is what West Adelaide's about. We're a club that breeds players for the AFL. We are basically like the Alabama of the SANFL. If the SANFL is the SEC, we are its Alabama. That's who we are. We don't have to worry about league level. We don't have to worry about reserve level. If that happens, fine. But being the Alabama of the SANFL puts us in a real special place, because we are breeding the next generation of future AFL stars. And when it comes down to it, when in the future, when we look back at these kids' cards, at these kids' select cards, when I get to AFL level, it's going to always say imprinted on there, junior club drafted out of West Adelaide FC SANFL. Right? And that means something as a club. That's what our bread and butter is. As a football club, this is, it's great our 16s runners. Unfortunately, our 18s didn't get across the line. We'll quickly go over the goal scorers in the 18s. For West Adelaide, goal scorers, Oliver Charlesworth, 1 goal. Talia Brain, 1 goal. For Sturt, Noah Manillo, 2 goals. Griffin James, 2 goals. Angus Mills, 2 goals. Ivan Wilkinson, 1 goal. Lewis Callaway, 1 goal. And also a lot more on there as well. I see a Lockie Words also with 1 goal. And I believe I mentioned Nick Mitchell. No, I haven't. Nick Mitchell, 1 goal as well. So, Sturt, well done to you. You thoroughly deserve the 18th premiership. You were the better team on the day. But unfortunately for you, our 16s are going to be our 18s soon. You better be ready for that. That's the positive I'm going to take away here from West Adelaide. So we're going to leave them for now. But if I'm the SANFL, our 16s are going to become our 18s. And then we're going to take an 18s premiership, because those 16s are developing really nicely down there at Richmond. Now we move to the reserves prelim that was held between South Panthers and Sturt. And unfortunately for South, it's more of the same. Sturt getting the win in this one as well. Sturt, probably the outsider here. South looked so good all year in the reserves, but it is Sturt able to get the win in the end. Final scores here: South Panthers 3-6-24, Sturt 9-13-67. Sturt running out your winners, probably coming out as the underdogs, but running out winners in the end here. Goal kickers for South: Ty Gardner, 1 goal. Ty Gander, 1 goal. Colin Shortridge, 1 goal. Jesse Nye, 1 goal. For Sturt, Morgan Ferris, 2 goals. Marcus Pavlich, 2 goals. Lachlan Burrows, 1 goal. Will Thomas, 1 goal. Isaiah Fadul, 1 goal. So Sturt, that is sending you straight into, sending you into the reserve grand final. I believe you're playing the Bays in the reserve grand final. I think that, actually, hang on, I will check that. I will quickly check that. if we have a look at the reserves and we go to the reserves grand final, yes, you are playing Bays in the reserves grand final. And I believe you're playing them in the league grand final as well, which we'll get to right now. So it could be a very much in the grand final, Adelaide Oval, it's going to be decked out in double blue, black and yellow all day for this. It is a double barrel of Blues versus Bays for the grand finals. We're going to have a look at how Bays got there as they snuck over Norwood. Ben, I'm very sorry. They snuck over Norwood by 2 points right now. Bays living rent-free in Norwood's head. They are just so much after last year's grand final. Now this, there's not much you can say if you're a Norwood supporter about Bays right now. Norwood looked like they had it coming into the third quarter, early last quarter, but then Bays, just much like the grand final last year, ran over the top of you and got the win. We'll go over the goal scorers. Goal scorers for Bays: Lockie Hosey, 2 goals. Liam McBean, 2 goals. Darcy Bailey, 1 goal. Matt Allen, 1 goal. Cameron McGree, 1 goal. For the Redlegs, Billy Cootie, 2 goals. Charlie Molan, 2 goals. Jaden Gale, 1 goal. Brian Lowe, 1 goal. Nick Rocker, 1 goal for Norwood as they are ousted by Bays here in what was unfortunate for Norwood. But as I said, Adelaide Oval is going to be rocking out in double blue, black and yellow for the whole day, this coming Saturday, this coming Sunday, whenever it is. I don't know. My team's done. We got our 16s and we're out. Thanks. But this is what the SANFL's all about. Is you have these two strong teams, and this is what I want to close on for today, as well as giving my grand final predictions for reserves and league. And I'm going to say that the reserves goes to Bays, league goes to Sturt. And now I actually violently want to throw up at that thought, but I'll try my best to hold it in. This is what SANFL's about. Back to what I was getting at. This is what I want to talk about. SANFL as a league, this is what it's about, where you have these two proud historic clubs who are going to both be in both the reserve and the league grand finals. They have been the best two teams all year across both grades and thoroughly deserve to be the two teams to represent the SANFL in the grand final as well. So well done to Bays, well done to the Sturt Double Blues as well. It's going to be a very interesting game or games over the weekend as we wrap up the SANFL season. Now, one last thing before I go. State of Origin has been confirmed. AFL level State of Origin has been confirmed during the week. West Australia versus the Big V. Hopefully, South Australia can get in on that action as well in the future. So that is a great piece of news out of the AFL, and that is what I'm going to leave you with as Ben. I'm going to throw this back to you. I'm looking forward to the weekend of footy coming up with the two AFL prelims and the Bay Sturt all day at Adelaide Oval. Thank you very much for listening.